Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PowerTalk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Our guest today is an entrepreneur and a co founder who has helped 400 plus CEOs drive their business through purpose. He is the Chief Purpose Officer and the co founder for PurposeU. Ian, welcome to our show. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much, Navin. I'm grateful to be able to speak to your audience.
Thank you so much. Ian, to begin our conversation, can you tell us a bit about PurposeU.AI?
I can. Can I start somewhere else first? Because PurposeU.AI is sort of the last step in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so about 20 years ago, and this is really sort of a culmination of where my life had been going right from university when I realized that I could explain things. Like I could explain complicated things in a simple way, but it meant that you had to sort of work through the complication to get to the simplicity, right? So that was sort of one thing along the way. And then the other thing was that, and this really started, my first job was as a copywriter in advertising, and I was writing badly, but I was trying to get to the authentic root of the company or the brand or the product or the service. Again, trying to get to that simplicity. And nothing that I was writing was authentic. It was all cliche. And that was a very big frustration. My career ended in copywriting not long after that. But my obsession with getting to the authentic root was launched, and that authentic root had to be so simple that it was self-evident. So now fast forward, and 20 years ago, I started a strategic planning company with a partner. That over the course of the first 7 years of the business morphed from a tell us what your problems are and we'll help you, we'll come up with a customized solution for you to, hey, we have a fixed process. And it's like a meat grinder, right? You put meat in and then, lovely sausage comes out the other side. And depending on the meat that's put in, it determines what sausage comes out the other side. But we became a meat grinder, right? Like there's no changing the process. And the process, it was really simple. And it starts from a very simple belief, which is that your single most important strategic asset as an organization, company, not for profit, charity, your single most important strategic asset is knowing the one thing at your root, at your essence, that makes you uniquely remarkable, right? Now, I'll tell you, 98% of the companies in the world have no idea what that is. They know what the features and benefits are for their products and services, but they don't know the one thing that makes them uniquely remarkable. And the beauty of being able to articulate that, and our standard is to articulate it in 7 words or less, right? So it's got to be, you're not allowed a paragraph or a page or whatever to wax poetic about this. You have to have it, the substance of it nailed so precisely that you can say it in 7 words or less. And it's actually usually 2 or 3 or 4. So it's even less than that. Now, so you could ask the question, well, why? Why? What are you going to do with that? Well, here's what you do. Now that you know your superpower, you use that short phrase to guide everything you do as an organization and everything you say. So those are all the activities of the organization. So step 2 in my process, blueprinting, because my company is called Blueprint. The process is called blueprinting. The first step after determining your 7 words or less is then to use it to define the top level narrative of the organization. And then your branding, your marketing, your salespeople will all use that to guide how they communicate, so that all your branding, all your marketing, and all your sales is always a direct reflection of the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. And then the second thing we do is we design how the organization is going to operate. That may be its structure, that may be, figuring out what products or services, or just how they're made or how they're delivered, or how you're going to structure the organization, all that kind of thing. So that's 7 words or less that defines what makes you uniquely remarkable, becomes the strategic driver for everything you do and everything you say as an organization. And as a CEO, if you're saying to yourself, how do I get everybody to pull in the same direction? That's how you do it. You define the direction, which is defining the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, and everybody will align everything that they're doing and everything that they're saying with that. So I did that with a partner for about 17 years until the beginning of COVID. Sadly, he died during COVID.
Bye bye.
And I knew that because of the pandemic, we weren't going to get any business for a couple of years. So I got my business coaching certification and I became a business coach. And at that time, I also ran into a quote by Pablo Picasso, the artist. And he said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. Your purpose is to share it with the world. And I thought that was brilliant because it gave a very simple definition to purpose. Purpose is to find your gift and share it with the world. Well, what I just described to you that I've been doing for the last 17 years starts with defining the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. That's your gift. That's your gift. So I realized that if you just articulated Picasso's sentence as your purpose is to discover the one thing at your essence that makes you uniquely remarkable and share it with the world, then purpose has a very simple and practical definition. So I took my corporate business that I had been doing and I rewrapped it in a blanket of purpose. So now that 7 words or less articulates your purpose. And really, all Picasso was saying was figure out who the best version of you is and be that. Be the best version of you. That's your purpose, right? And are you familiar with Simon Sinek and his books? Okay, so Simon Sinek created this concept, start with why. Why do you exist as an organization? And the answer to why you exist is actually the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. So he and I are talking about the same thing, but he has a 17 or an 18-minute TED talk called Start with Why. Every one of your listeners should watch that. And if you watch it, you don't need to buy the book because it's all in the TED talk. So now this business that I do with corporations is define your purpose in 7 words or less and have that guide everything that you do and say. And what I did when I became a business coach is I adapted it for individuals and made a course out of it so that you as an individual can take that course and discover the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable and have that be a strategic guide for how you live your life. That long monologue is how we got to here today.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much, Ian, for sharing that with us. So I want to understand: are these CEOs or are these challenges only faced by well-established CEOs, or it is the upcoming entrepreneurs and founders who are just starting their business who needs direction?
If your business exists and it could exist for 10 years or it could exist for 100 years, doesn't matter. If you define what makes you uniquely remarkable in 7 words or less, it'll take everything that you're doing and saying and it'll say, "Hey, that's all one thing. I now understand why we do what we do and why we say what we say. And now that I understand that, I can do it with greater intentionality. I can do it on purpose rather than it sort of working in the back." If you're a new business, I have a belief that every business was started for the same reason. And I know that sounds preposterous, but I think it's true. It's because a person or a group of people said, I know how to do this better, right? So they got trained in an industry, they worked in an industry, they learned how to do it, and they learned how to do it well. But they also would start to say, and this is as they get more experience and they become more discerning, they start to say, I wouldn't do that quite like that. I do it like that. And I wouldn't do that quite like that. I would do it like that. And slowly that builds up over time until they say, I know how to do this better. And whatever that is, they can't articulate it. They'll say, oh, yeah, it's this and this and this and this and this and this. And this. They'll tell you all the parts of how to do it better, but they can't actually tell you, this is how I do it better. In a way that you say, I get your approach. I haven't heard that story before. It's very interesting. So it's really important that you capture what that is that you're bringing to the table, the better way, and not just a list of features and benefits, because then you're caught in the pack with everybody else arguing over whose features and benefits are better. You
Yes.
want to elevate above that. You want to be able to say, this is what I do and this is why it's better. And have that person on the other side say, I haven't heard this story before. Tell me more.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Ian. Because everybody also, everybody is talking about technology and AI right now. How is this helping you and your clients have a better understanding about their purpose?
Well, okay. So again, I have one company that does corporate purpose and one company that does individual. And what you're seeing on the screen is the individual company. So if you want to discover your purpose, that at PurposeU.AI, that's a course. And I lead you step by step through a process to define your purpose, to create your purpose pitch, which is a charismatic way of communicating your purpose, and to learn how to use your purpose to live a better life, to make better decisions about your future. Where AI plays a role in that is that as you're sitting in front of the computer going through this course, you have me sitting on one side of you holding your hand, and there's, I think, 27 videos. They're all between 2 minutes and 5 minutes long. They're not onerous. But I lead you, I explain the nuances of what you're doing in detail. I lead you step by step through a process. And then on the other side of you, holding your other hand, is our AI agent, Wordsmith. And Wordsmith is all knowing and all seeing on all things purpose. And Wordsmith is going to help you do two things. It's going to help you find the words, right? So, when you're writing an email and you just write it out and you're looking at it, it's kind of clunky and you say, I don't want to send it like this. And you throw it into Chat GPT and you say, make this elegant for me. Well, you can do that with Wordsmith as well. And you can do it in very specific ways that are relevant to purpose. But the other thing you can get Wordsmith to do is you can get it to say, what do you see here that I can't see? And so in the process that I lead you through step by step, halfway through that process, what you're going to produce, likely for the first time in your life, and it's a really illuminating thing, is you're going to discover your beliefs, your wants, and your talents, 3 buckets of information about you. And everybody's unique combination of beliefs, wants, and talents is what defines who they uniquely are. So that means that your unique combination of beliefs, wants, and talents also are the components of your purpose. So now what we've got halfway through the course is all the components of your purpose. And then what we do in the second half of the course is we get Wordsmith to help us see what ties it all together. And so that's the role that AI plays in coming up with your purpose, is helping you see what ties everything in your life together to be this one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable.
There's been so many courses regarding business consulting as well as masterclass regarding AI. How challenging is it to scale a course-based business to get subscriptions? This question is for you to understanding how are difficulty and challenges you face in growing your business.
Well, what I would say, I mean, it's a good time to be asking because we are just in a soft launch right now. So the course is there. You can take it. You can sign up. You can register at PurposeU.AI and you can take the course and it's complete, right? It's a finished product. But we're learning exactly what you asked. How difficult is it to do? Now, I went into it. I mean, I've started enough businesses that I know that any business is really, really, really difficult to launch and grow and to make successful. And what we're doing right now is we're going through a process. We are testing an advertising medium that is likely not going to be our main medium in the long term, which is social media. We're testing it to find out the most compelling way to communicate the value of finding your purpose. And what we're finding so far, I mean, in the beginning we stumbled with messaging and all the social media sites said, well, you're performing well below average, but between testing, just testing, and also getting AI to help you with the tests, saying, here's where it seems to be falling down. What would you recommend as a new way to test? Doing all of that, we now have social media telling us you are performing way above average, 2 or 3 times above average. So it's really wonderful. There are usually people go searching for purpose when they hit a trigger event in their life. And a trigger event is just a major event. Could be retirement, That's at one end of your life, could be graduation. That's at the other end of your life. In between, you have things like career change, and that can happen three ways, right? Your choice, you're laid off, you're fired. Those are very anxiety inducing. Divorce, health scare, that kind of thing. Birth of a child. And what a trigger event, there's four dominoes in the process of a trigger event. And the first one is the trigger event itself. So it happens, right? So let's say it's retirement. As it falls, what facing retirement does is it creates a whole bunch of questions for you that you don't have answers for, such as, what am I going to do with all this free time, right? How am I going to make myself useful? How am I not going to get bored? From the perspective of a husband, how am I going to stay out of my wife's hair so she doesn't divorce me? And because these questions don't yet have answers, the third domino exists, which is your life is filled with uncertainty. You've got questions without answers. Your life is filled with uncertainty. And when human beings feel uncertainty, the fourth domino hits, which is anxiety and even fear, if it goes to an extreme, right? So when you feel that anxiety, that's often when you say, oh, I'm not happy with my life. I feel depressed. I feel anxiety. I want to live a life of meaning and purpose. And so here's the thing, that purpose, right? So you read a lot about purpose, and everything you read says, oh, purpose is a great thing. But nobody explains to you what the heck it is or how it works to make it a great thing. And here is the simple, really simple mechanic of how purpose works for you, but also for businesses to make decisions. When you're faced with a situation, usually you say, what should I do? What are my options here? And what's the best option? And really, in asking that question, the question gives you no guidance, because you've got a world of options, and the question is not giving you any guidance that limits those options. Instead of asking, what should I do? If you ask, what of my options is more aligned with my purpose? Now you've got guidance in the question. Oh, it's not all options. It's only the ones that are aligned with my purpose. And when I figure out which one is most aligned with my purpose, and here's how it works. This is the money shot in this conversation. When you say, I'm making this choice because it aligns with my purpose, really what you're saying is, I'm making this choice because it aligns with my beliefs, wants, talents. And that's when you make a choice that is aligned with your purpose, it makes so much logical sense and it feels right.
Absolutely.
And that's the magic of purpose. Once you know your purpose as a business or as an individual, you will start making better decisions, because those decisions will be aligned with your beliefs, wants, and talents as an individual or as an organization.
Absolutely makes it's very interesting and it makes sense. One final question, I asked this to all my guests, and before you understood your purpose, what was the one piece of advice you received that changed your perspective?
I was having a conversation with somebody and I said, this guy really annoys me. And the latest way that he really annoyed me is he said X. And the guy said, why do you let that bother you? You have a choice. You can choose to not let that bother you. And in choosing to not let that bother you, what you are saying is, it's his problem, not mine. By getting engaged and by being annoyed, I give him power. By having him say something provocative, and my reaction is, oh, I wonder what's going on with you that would cause you to say something as dysfunctional as that, as opposed to saying, yeah, So it wasn't really advice, but it ended up being advice, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It applies to all parts of your life, professionally, personally, everywhere. It's how you react to a conversation or to a thing. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Navin, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much. It was a fun conversation.